All right, so we're back for another deep dive, and today we're going to be digging into something pretty heavy, the aftermath of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of material to work with.
Lots to unpack.
A big report from the House Foreign Affairs Committee, public statements from President Biden, General McKenzie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all remember Kabul falling. That was a huge moment, but
Right.
what happened after?
Yeah, if the cameras moved on. Right. It's like
Exactly.
watching a building explode in a movie. And
Right.
then, nobody wants to sit through the years of rebuilding, but that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, we're going past the headlines. We're looking at the human stories, long-term fallout.
Absolutely.
And some of the stuff we found is pretty shocking, to be honest.
Yeah, there are some details in here that really raise questions about how this whole thing was handled.
Like, did you know that the Biden administration was actually offered control of Kabul during the evacuation?
I did not know that.
And they said no?
And then you've got high-ranking officials relying on volunteer groups to evacuate people they knew personally.
Yeah, that raises some serious questions about the strategy, but also the ethics of it all.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, so
Definitely.
let's start with those who were left behind.
Okay.
Imagine you're an Afghan interpreter. You've been promised safe passage. You helped U.S. forces.
Right.
It's August 14th. You're ready to go. You're at the airport, and your flight gets canceled.
Oh, wow.
And then,
that's awful.
to make matters worse, your passport gets destroyed at the embassy.
Oh, no.
That's what happened to one interpreter, and as of May 2022, he was still stuck.
God, that's just heartbreaking.
It is, and this story really highlights the wider issues with the Special Immigrant Visa Program, the SIV program.
Right, which is designed to help these very people to get Afghans who would help the U.S. to safety.
All right.
But it was plagued with problems, backlogs. When Biden took office, there were something like 17,000 applications already waiting. So we're talking tens of thousands of allies ultimately left behind.
That's right. And you contrast that with the public statements coming from the administration at the time.
Yeah, didn't Biden say that fewer than half of SIV holders even wanted to leave?
He did.
But then you read reports from people on the ground, and they're describing these desperate pleas and frantic attempts to get out.
Right. It's like there's this disconnect between the official narrative and what was actually happening.
Yeah, and that disconnect comes up again and again as you go through this material.
It really does.
It's tough to think about all these people who put their trust in us.
Right. They risked their lives.
Yeah.
Their families' lives.
To help us, and then they were abandoned in all the chaos.
It really underscores the human cost of all of this.
Yeah.
These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
These were individuals' families' dreams.
And in the middle of all this, you have these volunteer groups.
Yeah.
Veterans, everyday people.
Stepping up to fill the gaps.
Working tirelessly, often against the odds to get people out.
It's amazing, it speaks volumes about the commitment that these folks felt towards those they served with.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder, should it have come to this?
Right. Should private citizens have been forced into this role?
Right. A role the government seemingly couldn't or wouldn't handle.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about the scene at Hamid Karzai International Airport.
HKIA.
Yeah, I mean, those images, they're seared into our memories.
Yeah.
The crowds breaching the tarmac, people clinging to planes. It was just pure desperation.
It was. And, the sources paint a picture of not just spontaneous chaos, but real breakdowns in planning and communication.
Yeah, you're talking inadequate troop numbers, overwhelmed consular staff.
Right, and mixed messages from the State Department.
Which just added to the confusion and the danger. That whole gate pass thing.
Oh, yeah.
What a mess.
It was supposed to control access.
All right.
But they were easily duplicated.
So it made things worse.
Yeah, good idea in theory, maybe.
Right, in practice.
But in practice, a disaster.
And then you read the first-hand accounts. Parents handing infants over barbed wire fences.
Okay.
U.S. troops who were supposed to be overseeing the evacuation forced into guard duty because the situation was so volatile.
Wow.
It sounds absolutely harrowing.
It does. It really brings home the true cost of this withdrawal. It's not just the loss of life.
Right.
It's the fear, the trauma.
The sense of betrayal.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, the administration is talking about significant progress and efficient operations.
Right. Mission accomplished.
But internal reports are telling a much different story, with accounts of violence, overflowing facilities.
Yeah, dire conditions.
So again, you have this gap between the public narrative and what was really happening on the ground.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about transparency and accountability.
Exactly.
Speaking of accountability, what about the Taliban?
Right, because the administration kept talking about the Taliban's cooperation.
Mm-hmm. Like they were partners in this.
But was that really the case?
Well, the sources suggest something much more complicated.
Okay.
There are reports of Taliban fighters beating Americans, beating Afghans, blocking access to the airport, interfering with evacuation efforts.
So not exactly the picture of cooperation that we were being sold?
Not at all. And here's something else that's pretty shocking.
Okay.
The Taliban offered to take control of security within Kabul during the evacuation.
Hold on. They offered to secure Kabul.
They did.
And we said no.
The U.S. declined.
Why?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It raises all sorts of strategic and security implications. Could they have prevented the Abbey Gate bombing? Could it have given the U.S. more leverage? We need to dig into that.
Yeah. I'm already getting a sense that there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely. We're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah. And the Abbey Gate bombing itself, it's a tragic reminder of the broader consequences of this withdrawal.
Right. Not just the immediate loss of life, but the ripple effects, the long-term impact on the region and the world.
Right. This is going to have repercussions for years to come.
No doubt about it.
This is heavy stuff.
It is.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more on the aftermath of the Afghanistan withdrawal.
One of the big things that happened after the withdrawal was that the U.S. lost a lot of its intelligence and counterterrorism capabilities.
In what way? What kind of capabilities are we talking about?
Think about on-the-ground networks. The ability to gather real-time intelligence.
Right.
The ability to respond quickly to threats.
Okay.
All of that was compromised because we didn't have those bases in neighboring countries anymore.
So we're basically operating blind now.
To a certain extent, yeah.
And what about the threat from groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS? I've been seeing reports that they're making a comeback.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true.
Wasn't that predicted, though?
General Milley actually said that these groups could reconstitute within 6 to 36 months of the withdrawal.
And here we are. So it's like we created this power vacuum, and now these groups are just rushing in to fill it.
Exactly. And it's not just terrorist organizations, countries like China, Russia, Iran.
Right.
They're all watching this, and they're taking advantage.
What are they doing specifically? Give me some examples.
Well, China has been strengthening its ties with the Taliban, getting access to mineral resources in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Russia's been trying to increase its influence in the region, undermining U.S. interests.
So they're basically capitalizing on our perceived weakness.
Absolutely.
It's kind of scary to think about the ripple effects of all this, It's not just Afghanistan. This is reshaping the whole geopolitical landscape.
This is a global event.
Yeah. And what about the people of Afghanistan? What's life like for them now under Taliban rule?
Not good. The human rights situation is pretty dire.
In what way?
Well, they've banned girls from attending secondary school.
Wow.
Women's freedoms have been severely restricted. There have been reports of reprisal killings.
Oh, God.
Child marriage has surged as families become more desperate.
It's like all the progress that was made,
Right.
especially for women and girls, it's just gone.
It's a huge step backwards.
It's hard to even process all of this.
Yeah. It's easy to get lost in the geopolitical stuff.
Right.
But we can't forget about the human cost.
Yeah, these are real people's lives.
Exactly.
But even in the midst of all this tragedy, there are stories of hope and resilience.
Yeah, there are.
The report talks about these incredible efforts to help people escape.
Absolutely, like the story of Aman Khalili, the interpreter who was left behind.
Right.
After the official withdrawal, a volunteer group went back and got him out.
It's amazing what these people were doing.
It is. These are often veterans who served alongside these Afghans. And they felt this incredible obligation to get them to safety.
They were risking their own lives.
Absolutely.
It's powerful stuff.
It is, but then you contrast that with the fact that some high-ranking administration officials were using these same volunteer groups to evacuate people they knew personally.
Yeah, it's almost like there were two different evacuations happening.
Right. The official one, which was a mess.
Yeah.
And then these parallel efforts driven by personal connections.
So if you knew the right people, you had a better chance getting out?
It seems that way.
It's just not right.
It raises questions about fairness, about access to resources during a crisis.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder, what does it say about the government's ability to actually fulfill its promises when private citizens have to step in and do the job for them.
Exactly. It's a big question mark.
And that kind of leads into this larger issue of accountability or the lack thereof.
Right, because most of the officials who are involved in this
Right.
are still in positions of power.
Yeah, there haven't been any real consequences.
None that we've seen.
You know, in other countries like the UK and the Netherlands, their foreign ministers resigned after their own evacuation fiascos.
Yeah, they took responsibility.
And here it's like nothing happened.
It makes you wonder what message that sends.
Right. Does it mean that there are no consequences for mistakes of this magnitude?
It's a disturbing thought.
And it's not just about the past, right? This lack of a clear plan seems to be an ongoing problem.
Yeah, there are still thousands of people trapped in Afghanistan.
Right, facing danger every day.
The report also talks about the challenges faced by those who were evacuated but flagged for security risks. There's no clear strategy for what to do with these people.
And what about all the U.S. military equipment that was left behind?
Oh, yeah. Billions of dollars worth of weaponry.
Just sitting there for the Taliban to take.
It's a chilling reminder of the material cost of this withdrawal.
It's a lot to process.
You
know, as we've been going through all this material, I just can't shake this feeling of unease.
I understand.
There are so many unanswered questions, so many things that are still unfolding.
It's not over yet.
Not by a long shot.
And the consequences are far-reaching.
Yeah, it's a lot. It really is. I mean, it feels like we've just scratched the surface here.
We have. There's so much more to this story.
And it's hard not to feel overwhelmed, by the scale of it all, by the sheer human cost.
It is. But it's important to remember that amidst all this, there are glimmers of hope.
Okay, where do you see that?
Well, the report highlights some of the incredible individuals and organizations that are working to make a difference.
You mean like those volunteer groups we were talking about?
Them, but also human rights activists, aid workers, journalists, people who are shining a light on what's happening in Afghanistan.
Yeah, giving a voice to those who've been silenced.
Exactly. It's inspiring to see people speaking up like that in the face of such adversity.
It is, but it also makes you wonder what more can be done on a larger scale. What can we do as individuals to make sure that all those sacrifices aren't forgotten and that the people who are left behind, that they're not abandoned?
That's the key question. I think awareness is a good place to start.
Okay.
Staying informed, talking about these issues, challenging the narrative that this is over and done with.
So it's not just about donating money or sharing a post on social media.
It's about going deeper, holding our elected officials accountable. Demanding transparency, pushing for a better foreign policy.
One that actually puts people first.
Exactly. One that prioritizes the well-being of those who helped us, who risked their lives alongside our troops.
I guess it all comes back to accountability, doesn't it?
It does. And there's one more thing from the report that I think is really important.
Okay.
Apparently, several officials within the military and the State Department, they had expressed concerns about how this withdrawal was being handled.
They did.
Yeah, they raised these concerns. They even proposed alternative solutions, and they were ignored.
Wow.
Their voices weren't heard.
It makes you wonder, what if they had been listened to?
Yeah, what if? Could things have turned out differently? We can't know for sure.
Right.
But it shows the importance of dissent, of questioning assumptions, of speaking up for what you believe in, even when it's uncomfortable.
Especially when it challenges the people in charge.
Exactly.
It's a powerful message, and it goes way beyond just Afghanistan, doesn't it?
It does. It's about the kind of country we want to be, the kind of world we want to live in.
A world where we learn from our mistakes.
Right. A world where we value truth and accountability.
Yeah. This deep dive, it's been tough.
It has.
But it's been important. It's shown us the real cost of war.
The human cost.
The responsibility we have to those who helped us.
We can't forget that.
It's forced us to confront some uncomfortable realities, ask some hard questions.
And hopefully those questions will lead to some answers, some change.
Yeah, there's still hope.
There is. There's always hope, and there's always something we can do.
Even if it's just staying informed, staying engaged.
Exactly. Never stop learning. Never stop questioning, and never stop pushing for a better future.
A future where the sacrifices made in Afghanistan aren't forgotten.
And where the lessons learned are used to create a more just and compassionate world.
Well said, well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep engaging, and keep making a difference.